What is up, you guys? Hello. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As usual, I make a lot of running content. I'm currently injured, so not doing that for now because being injured when you're a runner is really boring. But I thought I would use today as a time to explain my VBAC birth story, because when I was considering getting a VBAC, I was consuming a lot of content related to it and just trying to learn what I could, understand different people's experiences, and kind of go from there and making a decision of how I wanted to proceed with the birth of my second child after having a cesarean birth with my first child, which was an emergency C-section after 27 hours of labor. Not an easy birth with my first. So going into figuring out what we wanted to do for our second birth, first of all, very important to just let you know, I am not making this video to convince you to get a VBAC. I'm sitting here thinking like we're basically swapping war stories. Everyone's birth story is a little different. At the end of the day, you have an intuition of what's right for you and for your baby and for the health of your child and for you. So I am not trying to convince you to get a VBAC. I'm just gonna share with you my story. I don't think this is the best option for everyone. I think it was the right option for me. So I just wanna start there. I'm not trying to convince you. So if you're here trying to be convinced, you're not gonna find it. But okay, also if you hear Bluey in the background, that's because my son is watching it over there. He's not feeling well today. So he's just on the couch because he was not happy in his crib. So we're trying to keep him happy over there. Let's get into it. If you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at my computer. I did take notes. If you don't know, once you become a mom, your brain becomes mush and you can't remember anything. So even my birth story, my daughter is now 10 months old tomorrow. That's crazy. And I can remember the moment she was born. All the details I do not remember. So my first thing that I would highly recommend right after you give birth, regardless of how it goes, try to write everything down because you will forget. Even if it feels super traumatic and super fresh and all of those things, it is really helpful. Like even timestamps of like, when did labor, early labor start? When did I start feeling really active labor? When did contractions go from 5 minutes apart to 3 minutes apart? When did my water break? Like all those little things, I don't remember because it's been 10 months and I'm a mom of 2. So my brain doesn't retain information that's unnecessary. Honestly, actually, no, it retains information that is not necessary very easily. It's the information that I need to remember that it doesn't retain. I don't know what that's about. Anyways, let's get into it. So here is my VBAC birth story. So going into attempting to have a VBAC is called a TOLAC. So it's a trial of labor after cesarean. And I only had one C-section before getting pregnant with my second child. The C-section happened and then I got pregnant when I was 8 months postpartum. So there was 17 months in between C-section and the birth of the second child. So they recommended I wait until 18 months to get pregnant. That didn't happen, obviously. Starting from the beginning, the birth of my first child, my son, was an emergency C-section after 27 hours of labor. I would say it was traumatic. I experienced a lot of postpartum anxiety because of that experience with my first. And also deeply recognizing how little control I really had over the entire process. Birth is like such a mystery and your baby is just as involved in it as you are and your body. And there's so many things you can't control. So a big thing that I did very early on into getting pregnant with my second was really deciding for myself, do I want to actually attempt to do this, or would it be better for me to have a planned cesarean and know what to expect going into it? Or is it worth it to attempt to have a VBAC and potentially fail? Like, am I okay with the outcome of that VBAC and trying to go through labor all over again, and then maybe that still ending in a C-section? Would I be okay with that, or would that be heartbreaking and traumatic again? Because your mental health as a mom is very important. So if you can do anything to set yourself up to be mentally healthy through the birth, I think that's really good. So I basically came to the conclusion after consulting with friends. I did end up hiring a doula at 32 weeks pregnant. So I did hire a doula. She was very, very helpful. You will understand as the birth story continues. Hired a doula, spoke with them, and really like they eased my fears about attempting to have a VBAC, and came to the conclusion that I'm okay if I go into this labor and it does end in an emergency C-section again. I'm okay with that. Glad that that wasn't the outcome. I'm glad that I did get my VBAC, but if it had happened, I was okay with it. So that was a really important step mentally to being open to the possibility of trying a VBAC and understanding that that is still just a trial of labor and I could still not successfully have the baby vaginally and might have to have a C-section. And also that there's nothing wrong with that. And making the choice to have a C-section is actually a really powerful, wonderful thing that we have today as women to save us, to save our children, and to prevent the reality of what childbirth can do if you don't have that option. So it was good. Mentally going into it, very positive, very open to the outcomes and the unknowns that birth can bring. Other thing that was really helpful is that my doctor was super chill about the VBAC. Like I wouldn't say supportive, but she was just like, yeah, you give it a try. If it doesn't work, you get a C-section. Like, it's all good. I was like, okay. I definitely am a numbers girl. I love data. So looking into the statistics of like the reality of uterine rupture is the main fear that I had going into having a VBAC and attempting that, having that smaller period of time in between one birth to another birth. So just knowing the numbers, knowing the data, and seeing like, okay, so it is, 1 in 100. I'm not sure of the research now because it's been 10 months, so maybe something new has come out, but like 1 in 100 can end in uterine rupture. But of those, there's like different ways to segment the data so that it kind of gets like, it feels less and less likely if you are having a healthy pregnancy, if you are of a certain age, and it just made me a lot more confident. And then if you involve Pitocin in the birth. So that all made me a lot more confident in being able to go into it and try this and see what happens. We go through pregnancy, we hire this doula. The doula is gonna be coming over and helping me with early labor. My plan is to try to labor at home for as long as possible before going to the hospital, because I do think something in our brain allows us to relax more at home. And so being in the comfort of my own home and being relaxed is going to help move labor along quickly, as opposed to going to the hospital. I do think being in an environment like the hospital, regardless of how warm and comforting you make the room feel, just psychologically feels different deeply, like subconsciously. So you are less relaxed when you're not at home. Sorry, I should say I am less relaxed when I am not at home. So being at home for early labor was very important to try to just move the process along as much as possible and be as far into active labor as possible before going to the hospital. So let's talk through how that went. Basically, my due date was January 30th, which also happened to be in my husband's 2-year wedding anniversary. So that was cool, having my second kid on our 2-year wedding anniversary. And then due date came, no signs of labor at all. Nothing. Okay, fine. That's to be expected. That's exactly how it was with my son. So I knew that day is going to come and go and nothing will happen probably. Next day, nothing. Next day, I actually started experiencing labor contractions, not Braxton Hicks contractions, but like early labor contractions that had some pain during the night, about 10 minutes apart. I was stoked. I was like, this is happening. She's coming and this is going to happen. Had false labor that night. So basically I had contractions 10 minutes apart for the whole night without really sleeping at all, except for in between contractions. Woke up the next morning, the contraction stopped. Okay, so annoying. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Next night comes, okay? Same thing. I'm not kidding. False labor again. Every 5 to 10 minutes, these were closer together. It felt like, okay, this could be the real deal. Petered off in the morning. I was so pissed. Okay. Third night comes. Same thing, okay? They were a little bit closer together. They were like 5 minutes apart. It started to feel way more intense and awful, you guys. Labor pains waking you up every 5 minutes at night. I was so exhausted. Me and my husband were exhausted. He would give me counter pressure every time a contraction happened. So we were really in this together. And we called the doula. We had her come over because I just was like, maybe she has some kind of magic trick to make this labor happen. Maybe she'll give me castor oil and it'll just really activate whatever needs to happen in my cervix, and it'll start to really go. Unfortunately, she showed up, put me in a position to start helping the baby descend during early labor, put me sideways on the peanut ball. I had one contraction and then they disappeared again. So doula went home. Okay, we're going into the 4th night, right? Exhausted, so done. I have cried in the shower. I had cried many, many times leading up to this day, but I was crying all day. I felt like a failure. I felt like something was wrong with my body. It's not moving labor along. Nothing was wrong. Let me just listen. Yes, your body is meant to do this, but it still feels like a completely foreign experience. Like, I feel like some people are like, oh my gosh, it's so natural and wonderful. And like, I had never been through that. I had been through early labor with my son, and we got to the hospital. I was like 3 centimeters dilated, but I had been puking the entire time in early labor. I think because I was just so nervous about going into labor with my first kid. So the second one, I was trying to be real chill, real relaxed, really trust my body. And I was so pissed at my body at this point. So the 4th night happens, labor is continuing, and I am just like, I hate this. I am not having a good time. We are going to go to the hospital. Oh, I forgot to mention, the power goes out. Okay. The power goes out. That night there was like this crazy windstorm happening. So the power went out on our block. So we didn't have any power. We have an electric hot water heater. If you know, hot water is very, very important for enduring the pains of labor. So helpful. And that was one of my plans for, pain mitigation and early labor. We didn't have any hot water. So I was like, okay, if you saw my video on the TENS unit, I did use that TENS unit. I'm gonna say it helped kind of. The sensation on my skin, labor is just so long that if you're using that for like 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row, like my skin was so irritated. I didn't like the sensation anymore. Like I preferred gripping combs. That was actually more helpful to me to like redirect the pain to like my palms, because that's so far away from my uterus. So I liked the combs a lot more than the TENS unit. That's my unofficial review. Maybe I'll do a full video on the TENS unit, but I don't really feel like I have any more to contribute than what I just said. So the power is out. I have no hot water. We can't charge our phones. And in my mind, I was like, you know what? The hospital will have power. I want to go there and I'm going to ask them to cut this baby out of me. I am done with this VBAC situation. I want this baby out. I am done going through early labor. Some people, it can go on for weeks. So I heard those stories and I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to be having a C-section. Like I'm going to show up to the hospital. And I told my husband on the way to the hospital, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? I was like, if I am not at least 2 centimeters dilated, then I'm done. And we're going to have a C-section. I'm going to ask them to schedule me and we're getting this baby out. Turns out, so we get to the hospital, go into triage, they check me. I am 4 centimeters dilated. Yes, the best feeling ever. I was like, 4 centimeters, thank you, Lord. Thank God this early labor wasn't in vain. My body was actually doing something and was moving the process along. 4 centimeters is amazing. Like, labor is not a marathon. I would argue that labor is much worse. 4 centimeters is like the first 10 miles of a marathon, right? Like the pain is yet to come, okay? So, but being at 4 centimeters was like, great. I am moving along in labor. Like all I have to do is be patient. The game plan was to call the doula. Doula came to the hospital. And then I asked her, at what point do you think it's a good idea for me to get the epidural so that I don't slow down labor? Like, how far do I have to go to make that happen? Because I was in a ton of pain at that point. I was exhausted. I wanted to sleep and I wanted to be out of pain. And if you've had an epidural, you know, you know, the epidural, when it works, changes the whole game. It goes from craziness, screaming, in so much pain to very chill and very happy and relaxed and fun. So I was in the zone. I do have some pictures, so I guess I can throw those in here as I go along, but I was in the zone. My doula told me get to 6 or 7 centimeters, somewhere in there. And at that point, labor is far enough along that she doesn't think the epidural will slow down labor, because with my first, I think that did kind of happen. Goal is to get to 6 or 7 centimeters dilated. We got to the hospital at 5 a.m., right? And then they checked me again around 9, and I was 6 centimeters dilated. Wonderful. So my laboring for 3 hours. Also, it's just a little side story. We were like walking around the hallways of the hospital, because walking can help like move the baby further into position. So we're walking around, and I was having contractions in the hallway of the hospital, and I didn't even consider that there's other moms in labor, and I was in the middle of the hallway just like screaming through contractions and like yelling and like guttural, not screaming like ah, screaming like ugh. So I was making those noises while other women were probably scared out of their mind, because I remember being that woman sitting there with my like first baby, early labor, just like, why is that woman making that sound? Like, is that gonna happen to me? The answer is yes. However, I was now doing that to someone else. So anyways, we get to 6 centimeters dilated. I'm like, great, get that epidural in my back immediately, ASAP. I need that right now, stat. They bring in some little student man who he's learning. So the one who's really good at epidurals is like explaining to him what she's doing. She's taking her sweet time. I had like 10 contractions in between asking for the epidural, finally getting it. Very frustrating, but whatever. I finally got the epidural, and then birth turned into a blissful moment, a blissful experience. I was just chilling, just having the great time, right? So I get the epidural at 9, and then at 11, the baby starts having little heart decelerations. And that is what caused my C-section with my first, is that he was having decelerations when I was 8 centimeters dilated. So I was concerned that something was happening, that maybe something's wrong with my body, that it just like gets stuck around 8 centimeters and the baby just can't fit or something. So they recommended at that point, 11 o'clock in the morning, they said, hey, listen, you're at 6.5 centimeters now. We think that you're not moving along very quickly. The baby's heart is having decelerations, and we think that maybe we should consider either breaking your water or adding some Pitocin, or maybe going in for a cesarean. But it's not an emergency situation yet, so we don't have to do that, but the heart rate's not looking amazing. So this is where the doula was so helpful, guys. Leading up to this point, she was using all of the pain management tools up until I got the epidural. Like, she was the one who gave me the combs. She had music playing, she had lighting, like she had all of this stuff that was so helpful. Gave my husband a lot of tips on how to help me with the pain, with the counter pressure, and kind of how to help with that. So just very, very helpful leading up to that point. At this point at 11 a.m., when we have to now make this call of like, what do we do next? I didn't know, I didn't know, like, what should I do? I didn't know how to make that decision. I didn't have a gut instinct. And I asked her, like, what should I do? And she said, you know what? They checked you 2 hours ago and things were fine. Now the baby's having some decelerations. We could, instead of doing all of these other medical interventions that they're recommending, we could do nothing and just try to reposition you so that maybe the baby's heart rate is a little happier, and just let your body move labor along. So I was like, great, let's try some new positions. So this is where the doula came in like clutch. And I don't think this would have worked out this way if I did not have a doula, this specific doula in the room with me. So she put me in some different positions. Some of the ones that worked really well was throne position. I'll put a picture of that here because I think this picture is so funny. Like, you can see how chill I am. I fell asleep up there. And then sideline release, which I don't have a picture of because I was butt naked. No one needs to see that. Sideline release, and she was like working into my glute while that was happening so that my hips were widening a little bit, or just like getting more loose and flexible. I don't know. So the baby's heart rate was happy again. We were just patient. And I said, okay, so like now what do we do? How long do we wait? And she said, you know what? You're going to start getting this really intense pressure when the baby is all the way down. They asked to check me again, and I declined the cervical check because I didn't feel that pressure yet. So I knew if the baby's heart rate is fine and I am fine, then you don't need to check me. And that's just adding another, even the cervical checking is a medical intervention. So that's just another thing. And they were trying to move it along a little faster. And I was like, I'm just going to be patient. We're going to be patient. We're going to wait here. This baby's going to move. We'll keep moving me into different positions. As long as she's happy, I'm happy. So we'll just be patient for this baby to come on her time. Which I feel like that was so helpful, and having the doula in the room really empowered me to make that decision. So we wait patiently with the epidural in some happy positions, had some jello moments, some fun, cute moments between me and my husband of, it's just so chill. Once you have the epidural in labor and your epidural is working, then like you're kind of just hanging out. You get to nap and relax. So then they come in, and around 4 p.m., I am feeling a little bit of pressure, but not a ton. So they do check me, and I was 9 centimeters dilated. Let's go. And they were recommending to break my water because I had a bulging bag. Again, we decided to go less medical interventions. Let's just let this move along the way it's going to. And if I don't need to do anything, I don't want to, because let's say we do break my bag, then all that water around the baby that is kind of protecting the baby from feeling like the intense pressure of those contractions. I just wanted to leave her in her little cocoon until she was ready to come. So I decided to just wait. My mother-in-law and my younger sister, who is now she's 10, I think she was 9 at the time, show up to the hospital. I'm sitting there. They brought sushi because I knew this is going to happen soon. So like my post-pregnancy meal was absolutely sushi, you know it. And I'm just waiting for that pressure to feel like, okay, I need to like push. Sure enough, while I'm talking to my mother-in-law and my little sister, I'm starting to feel that pressure, and I'm just trying to keep it cool, calm, and collected. I'm just like, okay, I just need to entertain them for a second, say hi, and then I don't want to scare the crap out of my little sister of what labor is, but I need them to get out of this room right now because I feel like I need to push this baby out. So they leave. I say to my nurse, like, hey, I'm feeling like a lot of pressure. Like it is time. Team comes in, the nurses and the midwife comes in, and my doula is there. She's ready to go. And they are like, yeah, we see you are ready to go. And my water was not broken yet. So they tell me to do my first practice push, knees to your chest, right? And you are bearing down with all your might. Like I had never done that before. So I didn't know just how intense the pushing was going to be. First push, my water breaks and splashes all over my midwife. I'm not even kidding. It was kind of gross, but like, I don't know. It's just amniotic fluid. So I guess it's not that gross. But anyways, water breaks, first practice push. The baby is like ready to go. I continue pushing I think for like 15 minutes. And the baby, she was not tolerating the pushing. Her heart rate was not stoked. So they're like, okay, we might have to do a vacuum assist. Are you okay with that? We're going to get the team in here to be available if we need it. We probably won't need it. So I give like 3 more solid pushes, literally all my might. My eyes are bulging out of my head. Like it was like everything that I had, right? Still no. So it's like, okay, this next push, we're going to take the vacuum. And it's like this little handheld like Dyson thingy. Like it was not that intense. So it didn't feel that scary. And I was just like, yeah, do the vacuum. Like that sounds great. I could see her in there too because I was using the mirror. So I could see like her little ear, like literally just like this little purple ear. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see that. Like this is weirding me out. She's inside my body. We need to get this baby out. Next push, they take the vacuum, boom, baby comes out. And I felt like the biggest release of pressure I've ever felt. It was like, just like my stomach deflated, and this baby comes out. They put her on my stomach, and best feeling in the whole world. I might start crying. I'll try not to. So yeah, there she is. And it was a successful VBAC, not just a TOLAC. I felt so stoked. I was just looking at her like, I can't believe we did that. I can't believe that happened. She's looking at me like, who are you? What am I doing here? That was really nice in there. And like, this is weird out here. She was so cute. She was perfect. That's it. That's my birth story. I hope this was helpful to you. I do have to say, it was an incredibly empowering experience being able to push my baby out of me. Like the C-section felt like my birth experience was taken from me, kind of, or like I failed in some way. It took me a really long time to come to terms with what happened in that birth, that it was not my fault, and that that C-section was a wonderful way to birth my son, and thank God we had that option. Otherwise we could have lost him or lost me. So like coming to terms with that was really important. But being able to push a baby out was so empowering and amazing, and I'm so thankful that that happened. And I just want to be really honest that like I don't think that had anything to do with me. I think that hiring the doula who had experience with VBACs was actually very instrumental in being able to successfully complete the VBAC, because in those moments that I really needed guidance from somebody who I trusted and who understood the outcome that I was really looking for, it was so helpful to have her in there, like so helpful. All in all, giving birth in general is an empowering experience. So if you choose to do a planned C-section, I want you to feel very empowered that that is a powerful decision that you made to have your child that way. And the recovery with a C-section might be a little different, but both suck. If you're wondering which one is harder, I would say definitely having like a serious surgery where they cut you open and move your organs around, like, is so intense. Oh, hey. Mommy's making a video. Are you okay? Are you feeling better? Mommy's making a video. It's worth it. It is so worth it. So anyways, cheers. I hope you enjoyed that story. I would love to hear your birth story in the comments. I feel like that's really intense, but if any of this that I just said resonated with you, I hope that you just feel empowered to make the best decision for your family, the best decision for your kid, and that you have the birth that you want for yourself. I hope that that is what happens. That is my goal in this video, is that you just get some information and feel empowered to make a decision. And I hope that that is the outcome. That's a video. Okay, I'm gonna go take care of him. I'll see you guys on the next one.